Hi everybody, welcome back to Bentley House. I'm Aira, and today I'm supposed to be filming the packing party for our Dollhouses for Kids Battling Cancer fundraiser, but as you can probably tell by my voice, I am sick, and I have been sick all this week. And so I decided to put that off until next week so I didn't pass on any germs. So instead, for some strange reason, I decided to shingle the Addams family roof. And this was actually a big project and probably not one I suggest to do while you were sick, but I did it anyway. So these are the shingles that came with the Allison Jr. from Real Good Toys. And I'm going to go ahead and use those, but because I've made so many additions to the house, I know that I don't have enough shingles to do all the roofs. So I'm going to have to make some more. So I'm going to measure the original ones that came with the kit. These are 3/4 inch by 1 1/4 inch. And instead of just making duplicates of the same shingles, I was inspired by this Victorian book of Victorian roofs on how they would use different types of shingle shapes on their roofs. And since the Addams family house has such a large roof, it's basically a third of the house, I wanted to add some more interest. So I'm going to create some shingles, but they're not going to be the same shape, and then I am going to alternate those shingles on the roof. Now, just like in my siding video, I'm going to be using cardboard for this, and as you guys suggested, I'm going to sand it first before I cut all the pieces off, because in the siding video, I'll link that in the iCard, I sanded it after I cut it into a billion pieces. So I'm going to sand it first, since I'm going to be gluing it onto my dollhouse to make sure the glue has something to hold onto. Now I'm just going to be cutting it into strips. These are 3/4 inch strips. And then I'm going to cut the strips into the shingle pieces, and those are going to be 1 1/4 inch long. And so these are going to match the original shingles, but to give them a different shape, I am going to go ahead and cut off the corners to give them kind of an well, I can't say that while I'm sick. Hexagonal shape. I don't even know if I said hexagonal. I don't know. I'm just going to cut the corners off of one side, and this is going to give me a different shape shingle. And I'm just going to use the first one that I cut as a template, and this does take a while, so it was kind of nice. I could sit with my cup of tea, put on a movie, and just sit there and cut shingles for a while, because it was hard for me to stand up while I was feeling so sick. Now, it did come with instructions. I'm not going to be doing half of what it says here, and it doesn't give you many tips, so I'm just going to kind of do what I feel like, and I highly suggest that you read your own dollhouse instructions for shingling the roof, but if you want to try the way I did, you're more than welcome to. So I lined one of the shingles up at the bottom of the roof where I wanted the bottom edge of the shingle to be, and then I put a mark where the top edge of that shingle is going to be, and then I'm going to make a line across, and I know that that's where all the shingles that are going to be on that bottom row are going to need to line up on. And I'm using a white color pencil just because it is black. I painted the roof black just to see if I liked it black, and I do, so I will paint it black again. But that's why I'm using a white color pencil. And then I'm going to do 1 inch increments, which this was suggested in the directions because I'm using the shingles that came with the house. Now, I did think at some point that these shingles were just a little bit big. I'll go back to that. Right now I'm just writing in pattern 1 is going to be the original shingles, and pattern 2 is going to be the shingles that I cut. And so that's why I just wrote out where I wanted those shingles to be. I'm going to be using wood glue for this because I want a really tight bond to the roof, because I have seen several dollhouses in shops for sale with shingles missing, and I don't want that to be the case unless I want them to be missing. There is going to be a part where there's some shingles missing, but I want to be the one that decides that. I don't want them to be falling off on their own. So I'm putting a generous amount of wood glue wherever I'm going to be putting my shingle. And this is because I am an overgluer, and I've mentioned this before, but I really have a fear of things falling apart, and so I'm adding quite a bit of glue. Anywhere I think the shingle is going to be hitting the house, there's going to be glue there to hold it tight. Going back to what I was saying about the size of the shingles, I do feel like these shingles are probably a little bit big for the scale. But now that I have, I'm voicing this over afterwards, shingled an entire roof, I can't imagine doing it with smaller shingles. This took so long with the size shingles that I have, sorry, that I cannot imagine doing this with anything smaller. So I'm actually okay with the size, and once I paint them, the size really doesn't show up as much as they did while they were still bare and without paint. Now what I'm doing is I'm adding some wood glue along the bottom of the line where I'm lining up the top of the shingle, and then I'm also adding it to the top of the shingle of the line below, so that when that shingle hits the previously laid line of shingles, it also adheres to that line. And as you can see, I'm doing like a 2 and then 2 and then 2 and then 2 pattern. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing. Now I'm going to be taking my Easy Cutter craft tool, and I'm cutting the shingles in half. This is for the very top row that goes up against the very top piece of the roof. And I did find the easiest way to cut the shingles without them cracking, they are rather delicate, was to use an Easy Cutter. And I'll leave a link to an Easy Cutter in the description below, because I always get questions on that. Now it does say in the directions that came with the project to cut them to fit before you glue them on, and I have no idea why I'm using a wire cutter on cardboard. I'm obviously still delusional at this point of the shingling process. Eventually I'll get out some scissors, but I did find that it was easier to cut them to shape before you put them on the roof. I didn't start doing that until like halfway through, but I do cover that up later, so it looks ugly now, but it'll be fine in the future. Now it doesn't give you any tips or hints on the difficult areas, like going around windows. Yeah, it just doesn't give you any hints. It's basically the directions are like, you know, this is how you shingle a flat area with no problems, and good luck with the rest of it that has windows and all sorts of shapes and stuff. So the way that I did that is I just started putting shingles where I knew that they would be a full shingle, and then I would just cut whatever was left to fit around it. And so luckily my roof on the Addams house doesn't need to be perfect. That's why you can see some of them are a little bit tilted, but I just, you know, went as I could. Now on the roof tower, I ended up lifting it just a little bit, because I do feel like on the original show the tower is a little bit taller, so I wanted to show you that. And then I did cut out the door, and so I replaced that with foam board and then cut out the door. You can see it has like a little lift, and I do have plans for that in the future. And then I painted it black to match the rest of the roof, so now it was ready for shingling as well. But I felt like I wanted to do that now because I didn't want to have to go back and cut through shingles, so I had to do the door now, even though I'm not doing any of the other details around it. But this is how it looks shingled. Now once I've got all the surfaces completely covered with shingles, I can go back and do something to the corners. Now they don't tell you in the directions anywhere what to do with the corners, so my solution was to cut a shingle that's the same size as the original out of the cardboard, and I'm just going to bend it in half long ways, and I'm going to add hot glue, and I'm using hot glue so that it will grab quickly. Because it's such a bumpy surface with all the different shingle shapes and angles, I want it to grab pretty quickly, and I will go back and reinforce it with some other glue later, but for now the hot glue is going to enable me to do this pretty quickly and accurately. But I'm going to start from the bottom, just like I did with the shingles. Start from the bottom and move up and overlap each one over the previous one. And this is going to cover the edge of my shingling job, especially where I just kind of hacked it up because I didn't take the time to cut it properly the first time. But I really like the look that this gives. I think it finishes off the roof. And looking back at some of my previously done dollhouses that I didn't shingle, somebody else shingled them, there really is no solution that they have for how to cover up these edges. And so I think that's why shingles fall off roofs so much, is there's no like finishing edge on the side. So I'm kind of surprised that they don't have a solution for that, but this was my solution, was just to like put these little ends on it. So this is what it looks like, all the parts of the house that I shingled. And so now I'm going to do a layer of Elmer's glue, and I'm not doing wood glue because I feel like wood glue really gets into crevices and it can kind of take away some of the texture and definition in between my shingles. I feel like Elmer's school glue, it dries really flat. If you try to get any kind of like 3D-ness from the Elmer's glue, you just really can't. And so that's why I chose it, because I didn't want to take away any texture from the roof. I just wanted to put a reinforcing layer of glue that kind of solidified everything together. It's glued from behind, and now I want it to be glued in front so that I just have one really solid chunk of roofing. And so, like I said, I'm an over gluer. Once that's dry, I'm going to do my first coat of paint, and I told you I'm going to paint it black again. I really like the black, and you can see the black in the original movie. And so what I'm doing is I'm just getting a healthy glob of black paint on a pretty big paintbrush, and I'm working it underneath the shingle lip first, and then like around the sides. I just want to make sure that I get every little bit of that shingle. And so I'm not painting in any one certain direction. I'm just kind of trying to get in all the cracks in between the shingles, up underneath the shingles, so that I have a solid black coat over all of my shingle pieces. And I'm just going to do one section at a time, going slowly, making sure that I get everything that I want, and then I can go back over it and kind of uniform my brush strokes by going in an up and down pattern. And then I'm just going to cover my entire roof. And if you have no idea why there's a hole in the roof, you might have missed my Uncle Fester's addition. He, likes explosives, so that's why there's a hole in the roof, in case you're wondering. But every single part of this roof is going to get one coat of just flat black. It's not gloss or anything. And I'm going to let that dry. Next, I want to add a little bit of variation in the color, because the flat black's just kind of boring, and I'm not really, all that work I put into putting in a different type of shingle, you're not really seeing that from far away. So I want to add some variation in the color. I'm going to start with some brown. This is earth brown. And instead of putting this on with paintbrush, I'm going to use just a little piece of flannel cloth, and I'm just going to wrap it around my fingers and dip it into the brown, and then in a swiping motion kind of from top to bottom, like of the individual shingles, doesn't matter where you start on the roof, I'm just going to wipe some of that paint onto the shingles. And it's going to look like a lot at the very beginning, but kind of wait for it to dry. You can always go back with more black if you're trying this and you feel like you've put too much color on. I really wanted there, because old weathered shingles are going to have a variation in color from what you would see. And so it wouldn't just be all flat black. So I'm adding on some brown, and this is the same brown I used in the siding. And now I'm going to go back and add some gray. This is kind of a darkish gray. It's not super light. And I'm going to get it on my brush and then get most of it off. And this time I'm going to swipe from bottom to top, making sure that the edge of my brush hits the edge of each one of my shingles. And this is where I'm really going to start to see that my shingles have different patterns, because you can see the shingle edge lines show up whenever it's hit with the gray. And this is also going to give the shingles a lot of age, because you know, especially if a house has like wood shingles, they're going to end up turning gray because the sun's going to zap all the color out of them. This also kind of marries the roof with the house as well, because I used a lot of gray in the siding. So this is how it's ended up looking. I'm not really sure if it's what I had envisioned. I'm not really sure what I envisioned. I've never shingled a house before. It was definitely interesting to try and figure it out. I kind of did it my own way. I totally feel like there is not one shingle popping off this roof, so I definitely achieved that goal. But for now, I like how it looked. There's a few things I need to do. So this might be roof part 1. I want to add, of course, the spiky things that you see on the house, and then I want to add some architecture around here to kind of mimic the TV show house. And I need to add the door up here. This is where the cauldron comes out, and attach the tower. So some things I need to add. So there may be a dollhouse roof part 2 to be looking forward to, where I add some more details. Also, in some of the cracks and crevices, I want to add in maybe some moss or like some nesting that you guys could see, maybe some more aging in the corners, and yeah, maybe some moss and fuzz, like I said, maybe chip away at some of the shingles to make them just a little bit more aged. But for the first pass, Dollhouse or Addams Family Roof Part 1, I'm pretty happy, especially since I'm still recovering. I feel like it was a successful go at an Addams roof. So if you guys have suggestions for things that I could add, ways that I could get this part of the roof, the spiky thing, without it being just totally insane and taking forever, let me know in the comments below. Have you shingled a roof? Are you scared of shingling a roof? It wasn't too bad. Don't do it while you're sick. Next week, I will definitely be filming the Dollhouses for Kids Battling Cancer packing party. We've got lots of donations. I'm excited to share it with you. I'm even more excited not to send germs along with the packages to these wonderful children and to Anne. Anyway, I will see you guys next week. Hopefully I'll be feeling better. Oh my goodness. And yeah. Bye. I can't do my bye while I'm sick. Bye. Bye. That sounded weird. Bye. Bye. Oh, I need to go back to bed.